So, here's a riddle for you. How can something as soft as water carve out the Grand Canyon? How can something so seemingly passive change the very landscape of the earth? The answer, according to ancient Chinese wisdom, lies in the principle of non resistance, a paradoxical idea that goes against everything we're usually taught. Let's take a walk back through time. Imagine, if you will, ancient China, somewhere around the 5th or 6th century BC. The air is thick with the scent of incense and the sound of bamboo rustling in the wind. Somewhere in this vast land, perhaps sitting quietly by a riverbank or in a humble mountain hut, is a philosopher named Lao Tzu. Or maybe not, because in all honesty, there's no definitive proof he ever existed. But whether he was a real person or a mythical figure, one thing's for sure. His teachings have endured for over 2 millennia, shaping one of the most profound schools of thought in human history. Lao Tzu is often credited with writing the Tao Te Ching, a slender volume of only 81 chapters that somehow manages to cram the universe into its pages. It's a masterpiece of wisdom, filled with aphorisms, paradoxes, and poetic insights into the nature of life, the universe, and everything. And at the heart of this ancient text is a concept so simple, yet so elusive, that it's baffled and enlightened countless minds. Wu Wei. Now, Wu Wei is often translated as non-action, but that's a bit misleading. It's not about being passive or lazy. It's about achieving the kind of effortless action that comes when you're in perfect harmony with the flow of life. Think of it as the state of being in the zone, that moment when you're so immersed in an activity that everything else fades away and you move with grace and ease. Imagine an athlete at the peak of their performance, a basketball player perhaps. They're in the middle of a game, the crowd roaring, the clock ticking down, but they're not thinking about any of that. They're not even thinking about their next move. They just move effortlessly as if the game is playing itself. This is Wu Wei in action. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing everything in perfect harmony with the world around you. But Wu Wei isn't just for athletes. It's a way of life, a philosophy of living that can be applied to everything we do. It's about letting go of the need to control everything, of striving so hard that we lose sight of what's important. It's about finding that sweet spot where action and non-action merge, where effort becomes effortless, and where life flows as naturally as a river to the sea. Speaking of rivers, let's talk about water. Water is the quintessential metaphor in Taoism. It's soft, yielding, and humble. It flows to the lowest places, those that others might scorn, yet it has the power to wear down mountains and carve out valleys. Water doesn't resist, it flows. It adapts to whatever it encounters, taking the shape of its container, finding the path of least resistance. And yet, despite, or perhaps because of, its softness, water is incredibly powerful. It's patient, persistent, and unstoppable. Lao Tzu, in his quiet wisdom, suggests that we should be like water, soft, humble, and adaptable. Rather than forcing our way through life, we should flow with it, navigating around obstacles, finding the natural course, and letting go of the need to control. This is the essence of Wu Wei, acting without striving, doing without forcing. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but how does it work in real life? Well, let's look at a story from the Taoist tradition, one that perfectly illustrates this concept. It's the story of Cook Ting, a humble cook who was so skilled at cutting up oxen that his work caught the eye of a powerful lord. When the lord asked how he managed to carve the meat so perfectly, Cook Ting explained that he didn't rely on brute force or skill alone. Instead, he followed the natural lines of the meat, allowing his knife to glide effortlessly through the spaces between the bones. By doing so, he was able to use the same knife for 19 years without it ever dulling. the lesson here isn't just about cooking, it's about life. Kuk Ting's secret wasn't in his technique, but in his ability to align himself with the natural order of things. He didn't force the knife, he let it follow the path of least resistance. He didn't try to impose his will on the meat. He worked with it, flowing with the natural structure, and in doing so, achieved something extraordinary. This story also introduces us to another key principle of Taoism: the power of gentleness. In a world that often equates strength with aggression and success with relentless effort, Taoism offers a different perspective. It teaches that true strength lies in gentleness, that the most effective way to overcome obstacles is not through force, but through flexibility and adaptability. Think about it. When we try to force our way through life, when we push too hard, we often end up breaking things: relationships, our health, our peace of mind. But when we approach life with gentleness, when we go with the flow, we find that we can achieve much more with much less effort. It's the difference between hacking away at a problem and finding the natural solution that was there all along. This idea of letting go, of not striving, is deeply counterintuitive, especially in the Western world. We're taught from a young age that success comes from hard work, from pushing ourselves to the limit, from never giving up. And while there's certainly value in perseverance and dedication, there's also a point where striving becomes counterproductive, where the harder we try, the further we get from our goal. Taoism asks us to consider a different approach. Instead of constantly swimming against the current, it suggests we find a way to flow with it. Instead of trying to control everything, it encourages us to let go, to trust that the natural order of things will carry us where we need to go. Now, letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means recognizing that there are forces at work in the universe that are beyond our control, and that sometimes the best thing we can do is to step back and allow those forces to do their work. It means trusting in the process, in the natural flow of life, and finding our place within it. In practical terms, this might mean pausing before you react to a situation, taking a deep breath, and asking yourself, am I pushing too hard here? Is there a way to achieve my goal with less effort, with more grace? It might mean letting go of the need to always be right, to always be in control, and instead embracing the uncertainty and unpredictability of life. Taoism reminds us that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. It's not about reaching some ultimate goal, but about finding harmony in the here and now. It's about flowing with the river, not fighting it. And as we let go of our need for control, something remarkable happens. We begin to experience a state of flow, a state where our actions become effortless, where we move through life with grace and ease. This is the state that athletes talk about when they're in the zone, the state that artists experience when they're lost in their work, the state that Kuk Ting achieved when he effortlessly carved the meat. It's a state of being fully present, fully engaged, yet completely relaxed. In this state, we're no longer concerned with outcomes, with success or failure. We're simply in the moment, fully absorbed in what we're doing. And in this state, we find that life flows much more smoothly, that we accomplish more with less effort, and that we experience a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. So, what can we take away from all this? Perhaps the most important lesson is that sometimes the best way to achieve our goals is not by striving harder, but by letting go. By trusting in the natural flow of life, by being like water, we can navigate even the most challenging situations with grace and ease. The Taoist philosophy invites us to reconsider the way we live our lives. It challenges us to let go of our need for control, to embrace the paradox of effortless action, and to find harmony in the flow of life. It's a radical idea, one that goes against much of what we've been taught, but it's also a liberating one, because when we stop resisting, When we let go and flow with the river, we discover a new way of being, one that's softer, gentler, and infinitely more powerful. So, next time you find yourself struggling, pushing too hard, or feeling overwhelmed, remember the wisdom of Lao Tzu. Remember that the softest things in the world can overcome the hardest, that non action can be the most effective action, and that the way to find peace and fulfillment is not by fighting the current, but by flowing with it. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the philosophy of flow, don't forget to like, subscribe,